I just made a Solana exchange with this Claude Skill. So a lot of people have pretty understandable reservations about Claude in terms of it tends to produce code that, even if it does work, isn't really maintainable. The code generally doesn't work because Claude, out of the box, doesn't know what success means for an arbitrary project. It'll just tell you that it's finished completing the goal and the test will fail. The code is hard to maintain because it's been trained on GitHub, which affects things in two ways. The first is that most projects on GitHub aren't active. That means that they're using older blockchains, not Solana, and when they are using Solana, they're using older deprecated tools, documentation from Solana Labs, which should now be Answer, and a bunch of unnecessary tech, things like Mocha and Jest and external assertion libraries, for example, when all those things are now built into Node.js. The second thing is that most programmers are terrible. I'm no exception here. Shout out to anyone who was at my squad's interview last year. You'll often see things like a bunch of bytes just randomly pasted in there and set to a variable, and the program works and the tests pass. But if you need to change anything, suddenly those bytes aren't valid anymore, and there's no information about where they actually came from. Also on GitHub, you'll see things like fix in production or implement later. Claude is trained on that too, and will happily often just substitute in a little fake function to make something pass out of the box. You'll see things like copy-pasted code, you'll see really long comments that replace single character variable names when you could just name things properly, and things that make it difficult for you as the programmer to get in there, look at what Claude has produced and evaluate whether it's actually good and maintainable going forward. So that's why I made this Solana Claude Anchor Skill. An Anchor Skill is a newer version of the claude.md files you were probably copying and pasting into all your projects a month ago, but they live in your .claude directory, and Claude can automatically apply them based on the rules that you define inside the skill. So here's how the skill fixes the problem. The first thing is it defines success. Don't tell me you've completed a task until all the tests pass. The second thing is that it points to current docs. That's the current version of Anchor. That's Answers Agave, no outdated Solana Labs documentation. That's the Solana Kit documentation, and that's the current Kite documentation as well. The third thing is it enforces understandable code by specifically avoiding magic numbers. So no calculating the space needed for an account by adding up individual 32s and 8s, etc. Just get the total size of the account and add the size of a discriminator. No weird copy-pasted values to distinguish between different instructions. Just get those out of the IDL and provide clear variable names that match their purpose. The final thing is that it makes Claude a deletionist programmer. I'm going to give you a quote from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who I probably didn't pronounce properly. He's the author of The Little Prince, but the quote is actually to do with any kind of design in general, including programming, which is, perfection is obtained not when there's nothing more to be added, but rather when there is nothing more to be removed. The skill will aggressively extract repeated code into named functions. It will remove unused imports, constants, functions, anything that's not necessary. And it will delete comments that just repeat what the code is doing, because the most manageable code is the code that doesn't exist. I installed this skill on my throwaway Mac. I enabled dangerously skip permissions in Claude Code. I invoked the skill with /Solana Anchor Claude Skill. I then asked Claude Code to make me a decentralized exchange. I also asked it to provide documentation about what an exchange is, what a centralized exchange is, what a decentralized exchange is, and the benefits for people trading and for people providing liquidity on such a service, and create unit tests that showed people providing liquidity, swapping, and removing liquidity, and Claude was able to do it. I'll add a link to the Solana Anchor Claude skill, as well as the exchange it created, in the comment below so you can judge for yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.